Hello everybody, the Nameless Narcissist here once again, a simple man diagnosed with MPD, talking to you about pathological narcissism and the things that go on in my head. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, but keep in mind, I am no clinician. I can only speak to my own experiences. So, I had a really interesting conversation the other day with another diagnosed narcissist, and it really surprised me how similar we were in some of our social politics type stuff, if I'm being honest. And I'm just going to give you a little anecdote about how I would behave. Let's say I went to a party where I came with like one person and know most people, right? So I'm going to walk in and I'm going to be very smiley and making comments towards people that are very friendly. I'm not going to like sit down and talk to anybody yet, right? I'm just going to be like, oh shit, I like your shirt. Very superficial stuff. It's like, oh man, you drink whiskey? Good shit. And like I'll say these things in passing. I don't want, because the other person, this is actually one of the key differences, said how they'll spend like the first time basically establishing the hierarchy in their head and trying to read all the people there. I'm trying to do that while I'm doing this, right? I'm instantaneously stacking people in terms of who's the most attractive, who's the most charismatic, who are these people connected to, who's obviously the most popular, who's the most intelligent, right? That one I have to get to a little bit later, but yeah. And eventually I usually look for somebody who's, especially if I'm not preferably I'm with somebody who knows a bunch of people at the party and I can just insert myself into a group very nonchalantly. But more importantly, I'll find some guy who is like more or less alone at the party. And, oh, by the way, the reason that I don't like just take a couple minutes to actually look at all the people in the party and make my hierarchy like carefully is because I don't want to look like I'm some awkward idiot or something like that. So then what I'll do is I'll find somebody who's kind of alone, obviously looks a little bit awkward, maybe a little bit awkward, right? And I know that he'll be a little bit more desperate for companionship and much more open to being approached by somebody than somebody that's in a group. If we're all plastered there, it's a lot easier to approach a group in my experience. Everyone else would be so standoffish unless they're drunk. I hate it. So I'll approach that guy, and this is when I really start to pay attention to people, try to identify who's friends with who. Usually I'll ask the person that I'm with, like, oh, who do you know here? Like, how'd you end up here? Stuff like that. I'll be asking him a bunch of questions, trying to like file that shit away in my brain, mainly with the goal of establishing the social network, right? And if I can't get an in with anybody through him, with anybody like significant, I'll basically just like start picking up people, go to like small groups of like 2 people, or we'll pick up another straggler until I have like a decent group. And that's when I want to start the real stuff, which is like I want to mediate the conversations basically. I'm asking the questions, ones that I am comfortable answering or give me the chance to self-aggrandize usually, but I'm also spending all that time identifying insecurities. So that one's really subconscious, if I'm being honest. Identifying who they're friends with, if I can get any, drama out of them, stuff like that, because that also gives me an in to do some shit. Nothing like malicious. I want to point out that none of this is malicious. It's purely for one goal, and that is for me to be the most popular and well-liked person at the party. Ideally, when I walk away from this party, the only thing people are going to know about me is that I've had cool life experiences, that I'm charismatic, and I'm attractive. Anything else, I really don't want them to know. So nowadays it's a little harder because it's like, oh, what do you do? It's like, oh, because I don't want to just say I DoorDash, right? So I'm like, oh, I'm a niche influencer. Then they're kind of, and I really try to like change the topic but sometimes they're like, oh, well, what do you do? Like, what do you talk about? And I'm like, oh, mental health. And hopefully they don't get more specific than that is my hope usually. Occasionally I kind of had to spill the beans or I just lied about it, but Then once I have my group going on, I'm kind of establishing who's connected to who's friends with what groups are there. I pay attention like who's the most comfortable in the group I made with those other people. And I'm trying to find the guy who is either in charge of the party or is the most popular there, or at least one of the most popular, because that's the guy I'm trying to get to basically impress everybody else. It's like, because I'm going to follow him around to a certain, well, not follow him around. Because I'm going to be directing where we're going as well. I'm going to be basically trying to get him to very engage with me and not want to leave my side for all of it. Because what's going to happen is if he knows everybody there, they're going to be flocking to him. And that gives me an excuse to talk to them and impress them too. And the goal is by the end of the night that either I'm the most popular person there, or I am second to that guy. And honestly, nowadays, it's a lot easier to be the second in command. I used to try to be the first in command all the time, but now I can convince myself that I'm puppeteering whatever the guy on top is. Because you become a target very fast if you are the first one in command. And it's very interesting because I can also kind of, oh my God, yeah, it was so funny because I was talking to this other self-aware narcissist. I know that I do this thing where when I'm trying to get information, I'll basically be like, oh, like they'll say something kind of, either something I've heard from somebody else I'll ask about, or they'll mention something that are obviously either want to talk about or they're very sensitive about. Like, oh, what was that? Or do you want to talk about that? Like, get it off your chest, stuff like that. And that person that I was talking to did that to me, and I only noticed it because I was like, oh my God, they had the tone shift. I know exactly what they're doing. And they're like, oh, well, I gotta gather information too. I'm like, yeah, fair enough. I respect it. Don't try again. And they didn't ask about anything that I was particularly bothered by, so I didn't really care. Let me think. Where was I? But yeah, so I'm constantly asking questions like that. And like the biggest thing that you learn is that people like talking about themselves. They really do. And you let them go on about their shit, and you can eventually just slip in, obviously being fake humble, of like, yeah, I just worked at a prison for a couple years. It was interesting. I got some good stories out of it, but it wasn't for me. And I usually try to say things like that. I try to let their like imagination go instead of me explicitly saying stuff, unless I want to impress them with a story, because whatever they can think about, because who do you know that's worked at a prison? Probably very few people. And so me just saying that I work at a prison, and I'm going to tell the most dramatic stories I have, of course, if I am pressed on it or if they're that interested. But I'll usually try to circle it back around to them relatively quickly, just enough to impress them. Because they're going to be coming up with some crazy shit in their head about the things I've done. Fuck, I love it. Usually by the end of the night, I become a lot more self-aggrandizing because, I get more drunk and I basically have met all the people I intend to. I'm still trying to make it about them, right? Still impress them. I'm not making it about them. It's about me now. But I'm still trying to like, I'm still making them feel heard, I guess. You know what I mean? It was so funny. I once met this girl who was like new to a friend group I was in at the time. And I just kind of approached her. I'm like, oh, by the way, I'm Jacob. Like, nice to meet you. Blah, 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 blah. And not really saying anything really meaningful, but I just kept asking about like, it's like, oh, you like are a teacher? Like, what do you do? Tell me about your fiance, et cetera, et cetera. And and then she goes and tells my friend the best compliment I ever got in my life, which was, is he a serial killer? Which, hear me out. She was just like, I've never met anybody so attractive and charismatic as him that wasn't a serial killer. And then she wanted to say, it felt like he like genuinely wanted to know what I was saying like about me. And I'm like, fuck no, I don't. Are you joking? Boring as shit. Okay, that was really mean. I'm sorry. No, but that is kind of what goes through my mind. Because like after a while of doing shit like this, you kind of realize like everybody has kind of the same buttons to press to get the reaction that you want out of them. Just make them talk about themselves. Just be very friendly. Always have a smile. Be very careful about your like I usually try to do like speak with my hands a lot because it shows a little bit more passion and like interest. And people are like receptive to that, especially if they're drunk. And you can kind of tell if it's somebody who wouldn't be receptive to that, like the more meek types. But even the meek types kind of like it because like it takes some of the pressure off of them to be like the big ones, and they can kind of like come around with you and stuff like that, follow you around like a fucking lost puppy. And I'm trying to think of other things I do. Like, I always love learning the drama there, because I love drama, I'm not gonna lie. I love gossip. I love shit like that. And once they... Fuck, what was I saying? Yeah, and like, there's been times I've been able to act as like a mediator between two groups. I'm usually trying to play both their sides. I'm usually not trying to be a mediator. I'm just getting both of them to like talk about me, and I like offer them, right? Well, not about me, like talk about like the drama, right? And then I tell one of the groups, I'm like, all right, guys, I'm going to go get tea from the other people. Like, I'll be back with a report, basically. And then I go to those people, tell them the same thing, come back, spill it, go back and forth like the entire night. I love it. I barely tell them anything unless I think it'd be helpful to them, so I'm not completely bad. And I also think if I was intentionally stirring up drama, that would be not a good look for me. I'll stir up drama with other people sometimes, but, you know. With friend groups is a little different, just because over a long enough period of time, like, I was, like, you know, if I can become, like, the most popular person at a party in, like, one night, I'm going to be, like, over a long period of time, I'm going to be, like, the dictator. I used to, like, intentionally focus myself on being the leader, but as I said before, I don't like doing that anymore because you're a target. That's the person that people have to, like, watch out for. I mean, I got really good at it because I would, like, literally, I was, like, so invasive now I'm thinking about it. I was, like, handling everybody's issues, giving everybody advice, being their counselor. That's so smart. That's also what I like doing at parties. Talking to their, like, the groups that there'd be drama, and I'd be, like, giving them advice and being super sympathetic, and they're like, oh my god, you're so wise, you're so smart, I like you so much. I'm just being so mean in this video. I'm making fun of so many people, holy shit. But yeah, that's usually the way it goes, and I have a lot of fun doing it. Once I get, like, a couple connections in, once that snowball, because at first I'm pretty damn anxious, actually, about people seeing me as weird or being able to get into a group or something like that. But once I get the ball rolling, I'm fucking all about it. Oh my god. And then I never see them again. Or, well, usually not. It's just because, I don't know, impressions of me go down pretty quick after you met me the first time. Oh my god. But yeah, that's basically all there is to say on that. I just thought that would be interesting for people to hear. I'm sure everybody does that, kind of. I don't know. I don't care anymore. Y'all have a good day. Take your fucking meds.